I love seeing some of these links. I got to check them out later. It's kind of a selfish ask. Okay, we are about ready to get started. Thank you everyone for sharing. Thank you as well for being here. And a huge thank you to our panelists this evening. Feel free, by the way, if you haven't gotten a chance to post in the chat to introduce yourself, say what industry you work in, and links are more than welcome. I really want people to connect. That is one of my main values. So my name is Dr. Benjamin Ritter. I am the founder of Live for Yourself Consulting. I have a background in organizational leadership and been coaching for the past 10 years. I founded LFY back in 2016, mainly because I felt stuck and I felt underutilized, and I saw a gap in leadership development and career coaching. Since that time, I've gone in and out of organizations, working for myself, working for others, working with contract work. I mean, I am just always looking for something to diversify my skills and a way for me to grow and learn. When I'm working with clients there, when there's meeting people in this space, there's all these questions on, well, how do you navigate your career? What are the right decisions to make? And so I thought, well, why don't we get a panel together of very diverse entrepreneurs that are doing some really different things to answer some of these questions. And so I'm pretty pumped to have Jarvis, Jason, Emily, and Julia here with us today. Please keep your mic muted and video off until the Q&A portion of the evening. Yes, you will have a chance to ask some questions. So you can use the chat box as a parking lot for those questions to help you remember or to share it with the group, or just jot them down as we're talking, because you'll have a chance at the end. Please respect and support your panelists, and be sure to continue making connections with each other. If you see someone in the chat that says something that really resonates with you, reach out to them in a private message, say it in the chat, connect with them on LinkedIn, and also with our speakers. As they're talking, if something resonates, say that it resonates. If you don't agree with something, say maybe why you don't agree with it. There should be a discussion between all of you that are here, and not just learning from our expert panelists tonight. Just another note, if you are enjoying the event, if you're having a great time, if something one of these experts says just blows you away, tag them, post it on social media, spread the word. It helps these events grow, and I'm sure the panelists will enjoy it as well. So let's get to the action. Okay, so let's hear who these panelists are. What do they do? So Jason, can you start us off, and who are you? What do you do? Let everyone know.
Sure, absolutely. Well, thank you, Benjamin, for inviting me to be a part of this panel. You've definitely put together a great, diverse group of people, as you had mentioned. I've spent the last 20 years working within the entrepreneurial and investment community in the Chicagoland region, and it's actually expanded throughout the Midwest. Been very active in supporting entrepreneurs on the front lines to build companies, to help them raise capital. And the last 9 years or so, I've been involved in starting a couple different efforts. One is I launched the Chicago chapter of the Founder Institute, which is a pre-seed technology accelerator. We help people launch tech companies. We were in the first 20 chapters, and now it's in 220 around the world. So I saw an opportunity to bring this program to Chicago, and founded the Chicago chapter. So I work one-on-one with groups, with tech-focused entrepreneurs to launch their companies. And I also got into the venture capital space a few years ago. I was always in and around it, but I had a chance to actually get into it. And so while I was there, we did 27 deals. I led due diligence on 19 of those deals. And this was all across the country, industry, stage, and geographic agnostic. I had left that firm in 2018, and it was a chance for me to start my own venture capital firm. So it was situation presented itself, and I still wanted to stay in the industry, so I launched my own firm. It's called Propellant Ventures. We're a seed stage venture capital firm to invest in the growth of Chicago and the greater Midwest across a broad range of B2B industries such as EdTech, FinTech, supply chain, healthcare, and future of work. So that's the main thing I'm focused on right now. I also do teach some entrepreneurship classes as well, and I see we have a couple of my students on the call. So thank you for joining in tonight, and I'll leave it at that. So thank you, Benjamin.
Wow. Okay. I want to dive into questions right now, but I'm going to hold off. We have a lot of other panelists here. I know we're going to circle back because I want to hear more about your academic pursuits as well. So Julia, can you share a little bit about what you do?
Definitely. Hi, I'm Jay Harry. I'm in Chicago, Illinois, and I work full-time at Deloitte & Touche in their consulting group. So I help finance groups with what they need. So with reorganizations, looking at processes like order to cash, and that's what I do full-time. And then I'm also the co-founder of Maker Girl. Maker, and we teach young girls how to 3D print because we found that there are not an even number of girls and women in STEM fields, so science, technology, engineering, and math. So we are working to educate young girls in a really tangible, product-oriented field that girls can relate to. So we've run sessions with over 4,100 girls throughout the United States. And we're actually running our sessions virtually now, fully, which is actually really good for us because it does take a lot of time to do our sessions live. So we have found some good pandemic to educate communities and socioeconomic diverse communities. So I work at Maker Girl and then at Deloitte & Touche. And anything else about me? No, excited to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us too. And just a side note, it broke up a little bit here and there, but we got everything. Just wanted you to know. Yeah.
Okay.
And so
All right.
No, it worked though. It came through.
Okay.
So Jarvis, please introduce yourself.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Jarvis Gray. I am a Lean Six Sigma coach and consultant, serving primarily healthcare, even though I've gone outside of healthcare whenever it's a good opportunity to do so. I've been in healthcare for over 13 years doing quality process improvement, strategic planning work, and about roughly 3 years ago, decided to kind of break out on my own. So I've been building my business, working full time as needed to get over humps when needed, and jumping, kind of keeping the pressure going to get my business where I wanted over the past 3 years. So that's the core of the business, but providing a lot of training, a lot of coaching. And then when I get the opportunity to jump in with healthcare organizations, providing consulting support for all the work that healthcare organizations need to provide great patient care, great patient outcomes.
Well, thank you for that. Emily, welcome. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Emily Edwards, and I'm the founder of Emily's Foods. I was a social worker for the last 20 years. I owned a private practice and got really burned out in 2018, sold the practice and went into food. My product is Paradise Icing, and it's a sweet plant-based icing that contains pea protein powder. We have 2 flavors. And so just really excited to be here and to talk about my journey. I did a 360-degree turn. So I think that in itself can create all kind of emotions, if you will. So that's my story.
Thank you so much. I have to admit, I secretly like tech, investment, food, and healthcare are like the pillars of what I'm interested in for just in general for career professional development. And it's kind of like a selfish panel, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. And hopefully you guys are too. And hopefully all the attendees are having some fun. So Jason, how about you start us off? Can you share with us, like, how did you know that your idea was the right idea? Like, why did you want to invest in that?
So for a long time in my career, as I mentioned, I still do, but I've been supporting entrepreneurs and I have a consulting business that does some of that, but I really was waiting to find the right opportunity to actually launch a business that could grow and scale, whether it was a tech business or a service business, but something that I could do full time. And I've wanted to get into the venture capital industry for a long time. I finally got into it officially. And then it ended earlier than I anticipated. So there's serendipity there. And it to me, it was the right opportunity to launch the venture capital fund. because that was for me a way to stay in the industry and control my situation a little bit more. It's still in the early stage of it. It's not easy, but I've committed to it and I've been working on it for the last year. And so again, serendipity is sometimes a way that people start companies, and that's what happened with me. I was waiting to figure out what that idea would be, and this opportunity just kind of fell in my lap, and it made sense to start this because I wanted to still stay in the industry, and this was the most logical way to do it.
It was like a combination of what you truly cared about, where your expertise was, and it was almost like a natural evolution, it sounds like.
Yes, absolutely. You're right. Yep.
Wow. Okay, Emily, how about yourself?
Well, I think growing up in Mississippi, I was always around my mother and my grandmother, and they always baked, and my mother played around with recipes and created recipes. And even in my profession as a social worker, baking was like a pastime for me. So when I really started product development with Paradise Icing and just really started to understand the food, I realized that I could still help people, but just not from a mental standpoint. Food psychology and people and food and their emotions is so fascinating. And so that just really led me to know that even with the trials and tribulations that come along with all of this, and I was actually in the right place.
Well, and I know a few people that love food as well, and I think they have a similar origin story, but they're worried about taking that leap because it's like, well, how am I going to make money selling food? How is this something? But people do it everywhere. Like look, you go to this grocery store, there's food there. You go to the bakery, there's food there. You go to restaurants, there's food there. So I'm excited to hear more about your journey. So thank you very much for being here. Would anyone else like to add where their idea came from?
I can tell mine because I think there are some students on. So I started Maker Girl in 2015 when I was a senior at the University of Illinois. And I was in a social entrepreneurship class. So it was a class with both business administration and then social work students. And we all had to come up with our own ideas of what we wanted to create. And we stuck them on the walls around it all. My co-founder had the original idea of Maker Girl. And I really wanted to join her team because I loved education. I thought 3D printing was a cool up and coming technology that had a lot of uses. And it sounded really cool, better than my idea. So I joined her or her team and we called Maker Girl. And I don't think we knew that it was the right idea by any means, but it was something that I really wanted to do because I'd had so many conversations about just like inequality and like systemic inequality and how that kind of works. And I really wanted to make a difference and not only have a conversation, but actually do something. So this was kind of in line with that. And being a woman who tends to be a CFO, I saw that a lot of CFOs had STEM backgrounds. So I wanted to make a difference there and get on the court and play and do something about it. So that's how I co-founded Maker Girl at Eden.
I see a similar thread between some of the stories so far. Jarvis, would you like to add in?
Yeah, I'm happy to share mine really quickly. And so for me, I'm an industrial engineer by background, and a lot of the work that I do from project management to process improvement all aligns with my educational background. So I tell everybody really when it comes to professional life, I am a one-trick pony. So when I decided to move forward with, starting my own business, I knew it would align with my background. For me, I didn't know where to focus it though, because it's a skill set that applies to any industry. So what I did was just reach out using LinkedIn. I found people that kind of did it already and made connections on LinkedIn, asked their thoughts, how did they get started? So just, informal mentors, more or less. And then making a decision after a few conversations to do it. But then one of the folks I talked with, they clued me into the fact that I've been doing it in healthcare for over 13 years. And the way she put it was, that's your superpower. And so that's kind of where I made the decision to stick to healthcare, at least to get started. And then I think the thing that helped me realize it was a good idea was when people started buying it. You start to make money in that path and see success. I constantly reach out to other healthcare professionals to ask, what are some of the things they're dealing with, and relate it back to the way that I can problem solve for them with my skill set. That's how I continue to kind of garner ideas, see how I should tailor training courses, consulting services. But that's been my approach for the last 2 to 3 years now.
I really appreciate how this just completely segued also into, well, how do we grow our idea, and potentially how do we problem solve? And so I'd like to hear from all of you. How do you problem solve? And maybe an example of a problem that came up recently that you were able to then use that strategy to solve. We've heard here, like asking people that have done it already and bringing those people into your network. But does anyone have anything that comes top of mind?
Well, it's okay. Okay. Go for it, Jason.
Oh, Jarvis, you go ahead. You chimed in first.
Oh, no, well, I was just going to maybe continue my thought if that helps, with the conversation. But right now, Benjamin, I'm in the process of rolling out Lean Six Sigma training, and I have 13 students that I'm working with right this moment. And as I'm working with them, again, just, the questions and the conversations that we're having in a lot of our coaching discussions, they've clued me into some other opportunities that they're fighting. And so I use this survey platform where behind the scenes, again, utilizing LinkedIn, just sending out more surveys and questions to other prospective clients. So my problem solving, just because I am a one-man team, revolves around just a lot of asking, a lot of listening, trying to, again, figure out what are the aches and the pains of these potential customers and organizations that I can partner with, and, just kind of pull it out of them. So that's my approach 99% of the time.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's what we have our founders at the Founder Institute do, is a lot of customer development research to make sure there's a good product market fit before they spend a lot of time and money on their solution. So I definitely agree with that. And mentors and advisors are extremely important as well. As I built this fund and continue to build it, I've reached out to people who've already launched funds before to get guidance, get feedback. As I'm talking to investors about my fund, I also learn what they'd like to be involved in and whether our fund focuses their interest level. And I've tweaked things along over this year, especially during the pandemic, as I talked to more people, got some feedback and narrowed our focus down. Last year is about building, getting feedback, launching it. This year is more about focus and really being a little bit more aggressive with the investors, even though the pandemic is slowing things down. But I've learned by talking to people that have done this before, certain things that we need to think about with our fund. So, it's been a bunch of different things that I've talked to people about, but it's helped focus the fund and really hit at some of the points that the investors are looking for.
So what I'm hearing is, it's not only listening to your mentors and finding those people, but it's also listening to your clients or prospective clients and using that information to adapt and evolve your business, or sometimes even to take things away and to focus. Emily and Julia, do you have something to add?
I agree. And I think, like for me in food, because people have such an intimate relationship, and when a founder develops a product in food, initially you're so attached to it that when you get the feedback, sometimes you don't really receive it the right way because you're so attached to that product. You put all your work, your effort, all your money. So at this point you're broke. So I think being able to stop, exhale, and really listen to what customers, mentors, what they're saying about the product, because you're not going to buy your own product. And so what's the pain? Once you know your ideal customer, what are you trying to solve? And what are they saying to you? So if you can't pivot and detach yourself enough from that product, I don't think you can grow from as a professional. I don't think you can grow as a founder. Even that product can grow. You can't move it. You got a great product, but if you can't get sales, it's just a great product.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, because for Maker Girl, one of our core values was really being live with the students. And we really wanted to educate the students and have university volunteers actually show the girls like what it means to be a maker girl in real life, like they're living, breathing. Because part of the problem is a lot of these young people don't have neighbors or aunts who are engineers. So we were giving them people who look hopefully like them to some extent. So that could have like totally, with the pandemic, stopped what we were doing because we had that pillar. So being flexible enough to like let that go and pivot, and to realize like, yes, we can probably still do that. And it may not be to the extent that we would like it to be, but our main goal is to really reach and educate young girls. So we can still do that virtually. And then with that too, we normally print out their 3D prints that they design. So we actually mail them to them now instead of the girls taking them home, because the girls love to show like, hey, I made a penguin today and I printed it out and I did my cat design, and really just to show their friends because they think it's really cool, and it is. So I think to grow and to problem solve sometimes means like letting go and being flexible enough to like realize what you're actually doing and why you're doing it, and then change directions to some extent.
I love the underlying theme here of staying purpose and goal oriented in whatever your business is. I don't want to like overlook this though, because we mentioned mentors a few times and people that have done it and touching base with them. But I know personally that the question I get a lot is, well, how do I find a mentor? And who am I, right, to send a message to someone that is a stranger? They're probably super busy. How do I even find the people that have done the work that I want to do? And so I was wondering if you have any tips for our attendees today on that.
I think for
I have
me,
a great tip about
I'm a
reaching
LinkedIn
people.
type.
Oh, you go.
Okay. For me, I'm LinkedIn and social media. So I read a lot. My background as a social worker, I was always researching. So I'm always reading. So if I see an article, I'll read the article, find out who it's about. Then I go to LinkedIn and I'll usually request to join their network. And I do not send them a DM asking them questions because I think that's rude. So I really start to try to comment on some posts that they make or follow them and become actively engaged with them to get to know them, because I think salutations mean a lot. Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for accepting my request to join your network. And then as you start to engage with them, that kind of gives them a feel for who you are, rather than just saying, hey, this is the person I want to meet, so now I'm just going to go right in and say what I want. Well, first get to know that person, get to know something about them, build that relationship. And I think the more that you can do that and you don't become so anxious it's just not about what you want, because relationships are vital. They're very vital. And, oftentimes I've said, even in conversations with investors or angel investors that I've talked to, is not so much about the money as it is the knowledge that you bring to the table. And that's what's important to me, is that initial relationship and building off of that.
Yeah, I definitely think getting to know people first is something so critical. And it's probably better to spend like 40 minutes getting to know them and the last 10 minutes asking what you want. Because that is kind of more interesting sometimes. And then people want to normally help people that they know. So that makes sense. And then the story that I was going to say is getting in contact with people and like reaching out can be maybe daunting, but it can be so easy. And one story I have is, as a university student, when I was a sophomore, I wanted to get an internship in fashion at a magazine in New York City. So I had zero fashion experience, zero like connections to New York City, but I knew it was something I wanted to do. So I actually took the masthead, which if you don't know, it's like the front, or it's one of the front pages of a magazine where it says everyone who works there. So I took the magazine masthead from like Vogue, Teen Vogue, 17, and I made up all their emails, and I probably emailed 200 people. And I said, hey, I'd love to intern for you this summer. Like, do you have 15 minutes to connect, like attached as my resume? And you learn pretty quickly if you have the right email or not. So you can pretty much make up any email. They're pretty simple to figure out. Once you know one, you can pretty much know all of them. So I reached out to probably 200 people. I heard back from about 5. And then I had internships set up in New York City. And I had 2 internships that summer, one at Teen Vogue, and then one at Rent the Runway in finance. So I think figuring out like how to contact people to some extent can be very simple. You don't have to overthink it. But I do think finding that mentor is something that's longer term and harder to find.
What I absolutely love about that story is the fact that you said 200 and then 5 responded.
Yeah.
And I think the goal with networking isn't to track how many people said no, but it's to find the yeses, because people aren't active on social media. People are busy. People have stuff, and so if you look at the rejection, or you think that reaching out to 2 people is going to be enough, you'll quickly learn that's not the case. And so let's change our expectations and say, I need to reach out to 100 people, and I might find one gem, one nugget, that, like the diamond in the rough, that is going to pull me under their wing and give me an opportunity, but because I'm curious about them, because I've engaged with them, just like Emily said as well. And so Jason, you unmuted, you had something to add as well.
Yeah, mentors are an extremely important part of the entrepreneurial journey. So I agree that it's not something you can force or necessarily frame as a mentor, but it's as you get to know people, it can turn into that relationship, and it should go both ways. The mentor should also benefit from the mentee. So entrepreneurs can find mentors or advisors by surrounding themselves with other entrepreneurs, and even potentially get involved in their community around in the entrepreneurship space. So with the Founder Institute, for example, we have had well over 100 mentors over the last 9 years. These are all tech entrepreneurs. We have 30 to 35 active mentors in any given cohort. And some of the mentors become formal advisors / mentors once the program's over, but that is after there's a comfort level on both sides. It's not a forced relationship. So finding mentors takes time, but LinkedIn is a good tool to find people, try to have a conversation, don't force the issue. And if it, try to get some feedback or ask for guidance, and maybe if that goes well, the first call, then see if you can check in every once in a while, and that may turn into a formal relationship at some point. But it's not something that really just happens by, let's have a mentor-mentee relationship. It happens naturally. And that's how I found one of my mentors. So he's been a mentor and a good friend for the last 14 years. We just serendipitously met and started staying in touch. We had a lot of things in common. I shared resources, he shared resources, and it just kind of worked out that type of relationship over the years. So you don't have to have a lot of mentors in your life. You can have a couple good ones, and other people that you can lean on as well are still important.
Yeah, and I'll jump in just with a closing thought, because I think my colleagues here said everything perfectly. So I will give everyone the devious way to also gain some mentors. Create something. So for me personally, I created a podcast, but if it's a podcast, if it's a blog, if it's your own self-published magazine or whatever it is, but through my podcast, it gives me a great reason to reach out and connect with some very high-profile leaders that are also potential customers or just colleagues. That's how Ben and I got connected at some point. He was eventually a guest on my podcast, and we've kept in touch ever since. But if you create something that creates a platform that gives a lot of, whether they're other entrepreneurs or prospective customers or clients, it gives them a reason to plug in with you. You can support their mission, their vision, their voice, whatever that may be. Recently, I just had a chance to connect with one of my personal heroes in healthcare, a gentleman named Quint Studer, and I was able to get him onto my podcast. My podcast conversation was only 45 minutes. He was gracious enough to give me about 2 hours of his time, and now I have his contact information and his email and his cell phone, and so I've already reached out to him a few more times on top of that. So that'll be the only, I guess, additional contribution I can add to the conversation is you're always, today's technology and mediums, you can create something and invite a lot of these leaders and mentors to your platform. And I think that's a pretty unique way to create the relationship as well.
I really appreciate that addition, because it doesn't even have to be anything massive. It can, let's say you want to go into the food industry, you want to create a food product, but you want to find some mentors, write an article just with and interview 10 people in the food industry and say you'll feature them, put their name in, and their links. And that's just you. So then you also get you get FaceTime with them to talk to them for about an hour. You get the article out there, and then you link them to it. So you're adding them value. And then you can follow up and say, in a month, say, hey, I want to give you some feedback on what I heard about the article. And so you're cultivating this relationship and investing in it over time. And like Jason said too, it doesn't happen overnight. You create mentors through investing in a relationship. It's like through that engagement. So thank you so much for all of your, I think, great tips. And I know that while you were talking, I was thinking back on where my mentors came from. And literally it was in each, every little bit of what you said was how my mentors have come to be. So I know that all of you probably have very different days, and some are entrepreneurs are managing multiple jobs. And so I get this question a lot, and I even ask myself it all the time. How do you structure your day? Do you have tools? How do you learn what works and what doesn't work? Where do you even start when it comes to prioritization and just getting things done? So who would like to chime in first on just generally day structure and getting stuff done?
My day starts with, I'm usually up, I'm an early riser, so I'm usually up between 4 and 5, sometimes earlier. But my day starts with prayer. I've just recently started back to working out again. And I have I'm still pen and paper, even though we got all this technology. I'm still pen and paper. I actually like pencils so I can erase. But anyway, I keep a list. And so I prioritize what I need to do for that day. And so once that task is complete, it gets a star. And if it's not complete, it gets a check mark. And so whatever I don't complete, then I move it to the next day. And so one of my mottos is every day we get a clean sheet of paper. What you do with that paper is left up to you, but you get to put on that paper what's important to you and how you prioritize it. So my clean sheet of paper, sometimes I start off with some notes from yesterday on there, but it's still my paper. And so what's important to me, where do I want to go and where do I need to be? And so I look at those goals on a daily basis and I reflect on them. And I think about my goals as when I was developing Paradise Icing, it's a process. So I have to go through that process to get the product. And so that's where I always start, even if it didn't work out the way I wanted to within that day, that's just that day. That was 24 hours. I still get another day to work on that.
I like that. It's process and goals are the ingredients to your product and to your business in a way. All puns intended. All puns intended. Someone else?
I can share. Mine's similar, but I do use technology. But not advanced technology. I use Gmail. That's my main form of my Gmail calendar specifically, and the tasks. I use the tasks every day. I list the tasks that I need to do. So when I wake up or even the night before, I look to see what I need to do, and I start going down the tasks. If I complete it that day, then I'll check mark it, and that it's a sense of satisfaction because you got something done. If I can't get it done that day, I move it to the next day, and sometimes those get delayed a week out. But the fact is, I get to the ones I need to get to, and in the tasks, I also talk about dates. If I need to get something done a week before or prepare for something, give myself enough time to prepare for it. That way I have a timeline of when I need to start working on things. And I've been doing that for years. It gets me organized. I'm involved in so many different things that if I don't have tasks, I'm not going to remember everything. And then I live by my calendar like a lot of us do. So, you see what's happening on a daily basis. And but the tasks are the biggest piece to keep me organized with. And I don't use, every once in a while I'll do a sticky note, but it's mostly in my tasks on my calendar. That way it's all in one place. It's digital. I can change it. I can use the keyboard to change it versus an eraser. It's the same thing, right? It's just a different way to do it. So, but that's what keeps me organized.
I admit I'm a task user too. And I like tasks I can be working out or going about my day and quickly add something to that task list. But I also then use like a priority worksheet. So I take my tasks, I look at like, okay, so what is still pending? What are my top 5 priorities of the day? And then I list them out. But those are all based, like as Emily was mentioning, on these greater goals. And I'm sure yours are too, Jason. It's these buckets that I've set that I know I have to invest time in and energy in that are important to me. And so those kind of are my divining rod to all my priorities and all my tasks for the day that I need to get done. And so Julia, I know you had something to add too.
Yeah, so I would also echo, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. If that's work for Maker Roll or work for Deloitte Consulting or work or just personal items, if it's not on my calendar, it's probably not going to happen. So it's just like not in existence for me. So I definitely abide by my calendar. And I also in email, I don't really, well, in Gmail, I only have like 3 unread emails because I know I still have to do actions on those. And then same thing with Outlook. I don't really file it away until that action is done. And then I can do whatever else I need to do. So definitely abide by my calendar religiously. And then I do have a to-do list and I use my inbox.
Yeah, something I've really had to learn how to do is to not be held like in shackles by my inbox. Like I do try to keep it under 20 at any time. Like everything I try to get done at least in the morning and night, but I try not to be reactive to it because that takes me away from the main priorities that I need to do during the day. And it is something I think I'm trying to deal with too as an entrepreneur. How do you not get like anxiety from unread emails and to-dos in your inbox? So it's something that I constantly have to remind myself and tell myself like it's okay. Like there's no rush. This inbox, this email is not super important. You'll be fine.
But one thing you said that there's studies on this, and I may not have the exact time right, but if you're working on something and you stop to check an email and respond, it takes you about 45 minutes to get back in the frame of mind to be continuing to work on what you're doing before. So you're absolutely right. Email is a big distraction. I get caught up into it, and I spend more than half of my day on email, and it's a big part of my communication. But it still also distracts from what I need to get done at certain times. And some people block certain hours off of the day where they're not going to be taking calls or checking emails so they can get their work done. And I wish I would do that more. I don't, but it's something I need to look into because then you can actually get some dedicated time to do some work.
And sometimes even like scheduling rest is a good idea. Particularly in the spring, I had a lot going on. And I had a coach that was like, Julia, you need to schedule an hour where you're not working at all. And that was like really difficult for me. So also scheduling and fun and rest is key too.
Well, I was going to say, I might be the only one on the line here with young kids. So schedules in this COVID virtual environment world is chaos, but on a good day, I still get up first thing in the morning, exercise, and then when the kids are getting up at about 6 and 7, hanging out with them until about 8. So I am a email scheduler. I only look at my emails from about 8 to 9, and then again in the afternoon from 3 to 4. And then everything else in my day is just creating equity within my business. So if I'm creating more course content, writing a blog, doing calls to, folks on LinkedIn that I've connected with on LinkedIn and following up and, trying to reach out to them, for one-on-one contact. But I actually try to invest a lot of time because what I do is such a personal service-driven business with coaching and consulting. A lot of what I have to do is really a lot of relationship building. So I try to spend as much time during the work hours doing that. And then later in the evenings, when the kids are going to sleep, that's when I just kind of get back online, create, catch up on pertinent emails. But that's a general sense for my day.
I've tried also to create those blocks. And what I would say as one extra tip is always like give yourself extra time during a day. And try not to schedule more than like 3 or 4 meetings if possible during the day as well. It does get exhausting. You will burn yourself out if you see a constantly booked calendar with appointments all the time. So I'd say to Julia's point, create some time for you to have that like rest, and then also limit in terms of how much you are booking into your calendar to ensure there's room for flexibility, and that you're hopefully going to curb the burnout that sometimes comes from the stress of being an entrepreneur and the expectations we place on ourselves to be successful and to make progress. Kind of going on to that point, this burnout potential, has anyone on the call, any of the panelists, ever felt like giving up? Ever thought they might want to give up?
Oh,
When it comes to their business?
absolutely.
Yeah. Tell us more.
Absolutely. I think you have those moments where it's more psychological than anything. And I think me being a former social worker, that I'm always probably over analyzing things. And so sometimes when we start going on that downward spiral, we can't really stop ourselves. And so I think that when you constantly hear no, trying to get your product in a store, or you're hoping for this pitch competition, or something big, you're waiting for that next big thing to happen, and you hear no's, that you eventually stop counting the no's and you're waiting for that one yes. But in the midst of all of that, you're still trying to figure out, okay, you said it earlier, how do you get a food product to move? What do you do next? What do you do next? And so you play with those ideas in your head all along. But then there have been days that I have like literally just sat in the middle of my floor and said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. And I think the biggest struggle for me personally has been, as a former social worker, the client found me. Like I would literally have to not take clients because my schedule was always full. Well, I did a 360-degree turn. Now I got to find the client. And there's this part of me that's really an introvert. So I got to convince this client to buy my product, and just really trying to figure that out, how to deliver that, how to be a salesperson and also be an entrepreneur and a founder of a company at the same time. And so when I go through those phases, I say to myself, if I've made it this far, then let me just tear up my pity party invitations and throw them away because nobody's coming to my party, and let me figure out what to do next. What's next? Because if I got to A, surely I can get to B.
I love that. Self-empowerment, staying goal-oriented, but also being real with the fact that we have emotions, and it sucks to be told no and to not be getting sales, and not to see like and have to go through the, I'd say 2 to 5 year window of I'm building a business right now. And it's like, yes, I have some proof of concept with clients, and I'm in store and people love my product, but there's still going to be a lot of people that don't know about your product, and a lot of people that you're going to have to convince. And it's like, okay, this is going to take some time, and I'm probably going to have days that I'm going to want to quit, but what do I do during those days? And I really appreciate that.
When I first started this, if someone had told me that I would go through all of this, I would have said, you know what, I'm just going to stay in social work and let the client find me, because I didn't have a clue. And I spent a year down at Purdue Food Science Lab developing my product. And some of the things they would say to me, I didn't really understand them at that time because I didn't know the language. I was in this food industry, and they would say stuff to me and I would spell it out, sound it out, and write it down, and then come home and look it up. And that was even intimidating and scary, and being inside of a manufacturing plant. And so in hindsight, I didn't really know all the ins and outs of what I would have to go through. But it's like, my brother gave me an example one time. He said that when people work in the steel mill, that if the steel could talk, they put heat on the steel to straighten it out. And so that's the process. But if the steel could talk, it would be like, I don't want to go through this, leave me alone. And so I think about that with this product. If I knew that I had to go through all of this to get to this, then I would have thought, do I really want to do that? But I would not trade this experience for the world.
Wow. Thank you for that, really. And I'd say every time I've been an entrepreneur, because I had a couple of different ventures, they didn't work out, right? That's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. And I'm happy that it is working out, because if I didn't have those experiences, this one would not have been that easy. This one, like I would not have known what I've known, would not have the skills that I have, and I wouldn't, I think, have that resilience. So the fact that like you have that resilience now, and it's becoming stronger each and every day is I think a incredible trait of an entrepreneur and a successful entrepreneur. Would anyone else like to share if they have a giving up story? It's okay if you don't.
I would just say I'm too early in my journey to even think that, and that, you know, that's not something I intend to do. I'm dealing with people's money, so you know, I've got a fiduciary responsibility, so that's not even something I plan on doing. But there are ups and downs for sure. Raising money is not easy. There's a lot of no's or a lot of delayed no's. And so it's, and there's yeses or delayed yeses, especially during this pandemic. It's definitely made it more challenging, but you know, I'm in it for the long haul. This venture capital fund is a 10-year cycle for each fund. So the fact is I'm too early to be thinking about that right now, but there are definitely ups and downs for sure.
Yeah, and to Emily's point, I would say being burnt out is like, you can't actually like touch being burnt out. Like that's not actually like a physical thing. So to some extent, it's really like how powerful your word is and like what you're saying. So it's also another way to like overcome that is actually changing like what you're saying. Instead of saying you're burned out, even maybe if you don't believe it yet, say like, no, I'm really excited about this. Or no, like, remember why you're doing it. I'm actually doing this because like I actually really care about girls 7 to 10. So I think it's an interesting question, and I always like, I'm just curious. It's just an interesting question whenever I get it, because I think it is like so much in the English language of how we use it, and it's not something that's actually physical that you like to some extent is like physically real. And then when I do get tired of something though, I think it is also another way to approach it. Find someone else who wants to do it. You don't always have to do everything. And I think that's what's really powerful with a group, and why I have a co-founder, and why we have an executive director of Maker Girl is because I only have 24 hours in a day. So there's only so much I can do, and really relying on your team to support you and communicate with them to get everything done so you feel exhausted and overwhelmed. So those are my 2 points that I would say.
Yeah, and I would just simply top it off. My personal experience is that I've not been to, I guess, the point of feeling like I was going to quit. At the very beginning, I did get a lot of no's, and still, you know, get a lot of no's, or not getting the connections through LinkedIn or other connection sources that I was hoping. I'd say for me now, I probably just curse a lot more now than I ever have at any other point in my adult life. But you know, when you understand your why and what's driving you to create this business, whatever it is, if it's passion, if it's skills and expertise that you've gained through, you know, your professional work or your corporate life, I think when you connect with that why, you'll keep pushing even when it gets hard. But I just say be prepared for a lot of cursing from time to time.
Yeah, that why is so important. I know personally that when I have felt like, is this the right thing that I should be doing? It was more so because I got lost in the work and wasn't able to think creatively and be innovative and feel the energy from that why. And so taking a step back and giving myself space to plan and gain some clarity was really like the superhero. It was like the shining light that I needed. And I would even say this question's interesting because in my past as an entrepreneur, I should have quit something that I was doing years before. And it was almost like that lack of clarity in my vision, like, and just the fact that it was comfortable and that it was working made me keep investing in it to when I wanted to pivot and do something that was more meaningful to me. So I didn't feel like I was doing something that wasn't me. Like it was a bigger loss. And I did learn a lot during that time, but I even question everyone now, if you have a business right now and you feel like something's off, and you're thinking about maybe it's not right for you, maybe it isn't. And so a lot of what we talked about today was about adapting and evolving. And so where do you want to take your skills to? And it's okay. You can drop your ego and invest in something else.
Well, and I'll jump in really quickly before you move on, Ben, and just say that, even to that statement, figuring out your why, I can honestly say after doing this for going on 3 years now, my why has yet to be money. And that was the first thing that I thought, it's like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be rich. And that's really not it. My why is a lot of personal freedom, a lot of control of my own schedule, a lot of things connected with my family. I was just talking to my 84-year-old grandmother last night, telling her about the new office that I'm moving into in a new business park here in Atlanta. And she made the statement, Jarvis, you're the first one in our family to have a successful business. And so the why comes in a lot of different reasons, but I have yet to connect a why to money. So that's been an interesting realization for me, especially as I just had this conversation with my grandmother last night. So
I feel like we've just led in perfectly to the Q&A portion, which is like we've seen in the chat. So if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat now. We're going to open the floor up. I think that would be easiest than having people turn on their video and such and unmute. So please just put your questions in the chat. We've already had one come in about how do you get money to start a business and how do you monetize a business? And I know Jarvis, you just mentioned like, well, I never really thought about money, but we all have to make money. We have a business. So would anyone like to add to that? Where do your money come from, or how do you make money?
I can start. So for Maker Girl, we actually ran a $30,000 Kickstarter in 2016. So when I did a master's degree at the University of Illinois, and we had about 15 people on our Maker Girl team at the time that helped us raise that. But we used all of our connections, friends and family to really raise that, and university like professors and connections there. So that was our first $30,000. And then we ran another $15,000 Kickstarter. Then the starters, and we have a couple of different methods of funds. So we are a nonprofit. We are filed as a 501c3. So that is the point of view that this answer is coming from. And we have friends and family, so similar to the Kickstarter. And then we have corporate donations. So we ask corporations to donate. So we have EOS, which is a manufacturing 3D printing company, and they've donated a bunch of money. Johnson Controls, and why they donate is because they believe in what we're doing, and they do want to give. So corporate donations, and then we have grants as well. And then lastly, we actually do charge for our sessions. So we charge about $18 right now, I think it is, and so we have that source of revenue. And it definitely doesn't cover all the expenses that we have yet, but we're trying to grow that. And especially with virtual sessions, we think we can get there. And then we actually have scholarships too. So we never want to limit the types of girls that are able to attend. So we do have scholarships. So that's how we fundraise and so are sustainable, but we have actually been like sustainable since day one. We charge people for our first session. So that's how we work with our financials, and definitely money matters to us, and it makes a difference.
So many different streams of potential revenue. I'd be curious on, being part of that initial planning session. Like, where am I going to get money? How am I going to get, what sort of grants do we want to apply for? What corporate sponsorships can we get? And friends and family, how important was that? I can only imagine like what it felt like to get the first corporate sponsor. And before we kind of hear from everyone else, can you explain a little bit about how you were even able to achieve that?
Can you repeat the last part?
Yeah, how do you find your first corporate sponsor?
Break on my handle. Maybe if you ping it. Sorry. I don't know why the connection isn't great right now.
Yeah, no worries. I'll follow up.
I wish I could answer you.
No worries. I'll put it in the chat as well. Would anyone
Okay,
like
actually, I
to?
can hear you now, but
Well, so then
okay.
how do you find your first corporate sponsor?
Oh, how do we find it? Great collaborator. We'd met a few people along the way. And our first sponsor, I think, was Avant. And I'm forgetting the founder's name right now, but we had met him at an event. So we worked with Avant, which is a Chicago-based startup. And then we got connected to someone who sort of managed their community development. And we submitted like probably a 3-page proposal of why donating to Maker Girl was a great idea with us. And we submitted that. And I remember getting the call. I was like walking up to my apartment and I was with my co-founder and we had to be very cool, calm, and collected on the phone with this woman from Avant.
I'm sorry, Julia, it's breaking up a little bit.
She said her and Avant were giving others to support us.
So while Julia maybe has her internet connection speed back up, would anyone else like to share about their opinion on money and how to make money as an entrepreneur?
I think you have to be creative. Bootstrapping for sure is one. That's what I've done a lot of. Pitch competitions, friends and family. And then I also think you have to be creative outside of that. Like, even though I don't do social work anymore, I still do consultation for other social workers that are in private practice. So you have to use some of the skills that you have that you may not want to use. You have to use them until you can get to where you want to go.
Yeah, great points.
Yeah, I can add a little bit to that. In addition, I agree with bootstrapping, friends and family, and then at some point, high net worth individuals or angel investors, which could be friends and family, but usually it's people that you get introduced to that don't know you well. Friends and family usually want to see you succeed, so they care less about what you're doing, but more about you succeeding. Then you get professional investors, and they're going to care more about what you're doing. Obviously, they want to feel comfortable that you can execute, but they're going to really look at the business model more and do due diligence on what you're doing. So it just depends on type of business you want to build. You can't get bank financing. It's very tough for a startup, but if you have a way to guarantee the money, so maybe you have other sources of income or you co-sign with a partner that you can, you have a plan to pay that back, even if your business is not going to produce revenue right away. But it's, and then to what Emily said, yeah, if you can have some part-time work just to bring some dollars in, that can help fund your business. A lot of entrepreneurs do that. With Founder Institute, most of our founders are part-time on their business. They have day jobs, so they're earning income to build their business. And then at a certain point, when they believe they've built something, they can take the full leap, quit their day job, and work full-time on their business. And so savings is part of that, right? Bootstrapping, but it also, an income coming in can help support to build that initially. A lot of people start businesses part-time.
I do want to ask you something real quick, Jason, because you see a lot of founders. There's some questions in the chat about how much money do you need to start a business, or how do you launch a business while working full-time? Like, can you, just from your own experience, I think I might know what you have to say, maybe not, but how much money it takes to start a business, or how to prototype maybe when you don't have a lot of money?
Well, there's all ranges of the costs to start a business, but I wouldn't spend a lot of money initially. There's something called a concierge service. If you are going to build a tech business or a product, let's just start with a tech business. You can build a concierge model where you can manually deliver your service before you have to build any of the technology behind it. So Groupon, for example, they started that way. They created a WordPress page for their first coupon, and I believe they manually printed those coupons out to give it to their initial customers. So they didn't have all that back end that they built initially, but they wanted to prove that this could work. So you can do some manual, some low tech type of things to prove that it works. If you're a service business, you can get started pretty quickly and get revenue coming in fairly quickly and be profitable quicker than a product-based company. And so, if you're building a tech business, I mean, you're going to need thousands of dollars. I mean, but you don't have to build the full version of what you want to do initially. Get some feedback from potential customers, iterate, build on top of that. Eventually, you can use that also to raise money from investors. And a lot of founders do this part-time. That's why our program, Founder Institute, works well, because it's a part-time program and you do not have to quit your day job. So you can easily talk to people in and around your day job or whatever other obligations you have. You just have to prioritize and find ways to schedule that in your day to talk to people. And so you can be a student, you can have another job and still work on building something. A lot of tech entrepreneurs start building it while they have a full-time job. It's a pretty common way to do it. And that can go for any type of business, not just tech. Before you jump fully into it, you want to make sure there's a good product market fit. You're actually solving something and you have potential customers. So,
yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
And I'm on the same page with you. There are ways to sell your product without having a full product. There are ways to test out your product at very minimal cost. Service-based businesses especially, you don't even need a website. You literally can just tell people what you're doing that are around you and ask for referrals and build a brand that way through messaging. And Jarvis, I know that you unmuted, so I want to give you a chance to add on.
No, well, just to everything again that my colleagues here on the panel have shared. I am a service-based business. I am a one-person service-based business. So the number one thing you can do, and it's essentially a no cost or very, very low cost, is again, based on your skills, your expertise, go find that person, that company that you think is that ideal client, and just go ask them what the problem is. And if it's something that aligns with the skills that you are bringing to them, and this is literally how I started, but once you understand what that problem is, you think you can solve it, ask if you can solve it for free. That'll get you your first client. If, hopefully you're in a position you can donate some time and help them achieve that goal, and just say the only thing it's going to cost you is a video testimony or a written testimony that I am the person for this particular skill. And that is how you get started right there. No websites. I made the mistake of paying GoDaddy $2,000 for a website. I wish I had my $2,000 back. It's just that easy to start if this is what you do. That's what I can speak to, because that's the way that I've gone at it now. But just jump in, go for it.
Yeah, if you can share as well, you have a pretty unique business model with Maker Girl. I mean, you train people to basically work for you, and people that are passionate on campuses. Is that correct?
Exactly. We have about 16 university volunteers from 6 different universities across the nation, and they, until about a month ago, all used to work for free and volunteer time because of committed to Maker Girl and what we were doing, and because they all and opportunities to grow. So yes, and then since then, because we're doing our virtual sessions, we're trying out a different business model where we actually pay to some extent university volunteers because we do need a different level of commitment and ability to show up. So that is what we're doing right now.
Thank you for sharing that. And hopefully we've offered a couple different tips for people to go out there and start their business. And I'd say figure out how you can sell whatever it is, whatever's on your mind, in a way to test it out, either through offering your time or bootstrapping or creating like the least amount that you need to create to sell, and just get some proof under your belt, get some feedback. Because also as you put your brand out there and you put your message out there, all you're doing is building your community, which basically makes your success come faster than it would if you're just sitting there ruminating and trying to create like the perfect product or the perfect thing. Now, we had a question again about networking, and I think it's, we mentioned it before a little bit about while we were talking about how to find a mentor. I think it's so important to mention it again, like the importance of building a network around you that believes in you, that knows you, that supports you. And so for clients or just for relationships, do any of you have some tips other than just maybe send a message on LinkedIn? I really liked Emily's tips before about engaging prior, like on any other posts, to show that you care and to kind of show up and be a memorable face. But is there anything else you guys can offer?
Yeah, I can jump in. I mean, building relationships is who I am, and that's something I've done since my college days. So it is what's allowed me to get to where I am today. So your biggest asset are your relationships. That's something you can take with you, and no one can take that away from you. Take it with you from job to job, company to company. And for me, it's all about finding value and paying it forward, finding a way to assist other people, finding out what their needs are, what they're looking for, and finding ways to support them. I've always never been a taker. I've been always a giver. And then when the time comes that you're looking for something, people will be open to helping you. So I've been initially, when I got started doing this 20 years ago, there were not a lot of tools. I had a Yahoo email group, and then eventually, after I got too many people on there, I had to go to a newsletter. And I did a lot of personal branding around what I did. I had a website, a blog, all this stuff to build myself around a business relationship person, and provided tips and resources. And it's allowed me to build my network over the 20 years or so. And I do a lot of events. I still do, but that's a way to stay in front of people. So I'm always trying to find ways to stay in front of people. With my business now, I have a newsletter as well that I started last year to update people on what's happening, but also to share events I'm a part of, just to show that I'm active in the community. But for me, it's finding touch points, keeping in touch with them, and providing value wherever you can.
I like how that builds off of. Yeah. I like how that builds off of Jarvis's point prior too, as well as, can you create something to give people value? Can you create something to bring people to you and give them a reason to want to talk to you? It's really important. It doesn't have to be, again, anything major. It just has to be something small that is not just asking something from someone. I so often, and you guys are probably the same, I get messages just saying, here's my name, this is what I want. No, I'm not going to respond to that. Here's my name, this is why I'm interested in you. Would you like to have a conversation? Sure. And maybe in the first conversation, you don't get what you want, but you might in the second and third. You're much more likely.
Yeah, let me respond to that real quickly, because that's a big point for me on LinkedIn. I get requests every day, and like a lot of us probably do, and many people just put a request to connect, and that's it. There's no qualification on why. They don't tell me why they want to talk. I respond with everyone and say, let's find a time to talk and get to know each other, see if we can be a resource for each other. I have my phone number there, and I say, or let's set up a time. And I maybe hear from half those people, and the people I hear from, we set up a call. It does take time to do that. I used to meet people in person, and that definitely there's no time for that anymore. I will meet them when I can, if there makes sense. But the fact is, I respond and say, let's find a time to talk and see if we can be a resource for each other. I met so many great people that way. I've met investors that way. I met a lot of entrepreneurs, people that I'm close with right now. And it does take time, but that's part of who I am, is building relationships. So I make the time, and it's been really a great tool. I don't know if anyone's heard of Lunch Club. That's been a really great tool as well. It's a curated connection based on your interests and the other people's interests, and they bring you together. You can decide how many meetings a week and it's all through Google Meet, and they set it up for you. So I've met some really good people that way. It's may even better be a higher quality than LinkedIn because it's more curated. And for me, I've met some investors that I'm talking to and some people I've built some good relationships with. So you have to get invitation to be a part of Lunch Club from someone that is already a part of it. But fact is, tools like that are a really good way to build the relationships.
Yeah, I'm not sure how the invitations work. Feel free to hit me up if you need one. I don't know.
Yeah, you go to your homepage and you can do it, click on invite, it gives an invite link, and then you get credit for that. So good thing is you can then be specific on some of the people you want to meet based on your credit. So definitely hit up Benjamin and so he can get credit for inviting you into Lunch Club.
Awesome. And I know Julia unmuted. I think you had something to add.
Yeah. Well, Jason, you're way nicer on LinkedIn than I am, because if someone asks me and they don't say anything, I just don't answer. But I would say I make meeting people a lot more complicated than it has to be. And I say that with a story because I was like talking to my mom one time and I was like, I don't know how to meet men to date. And she was like, Julia, all you have to do is say hi to 10 people on the street and you're going to meet so many people. And I think that's so powerful, just to say hi to someone and start a conversation without even an intention, just to like be out there in the world and be kind. And I did not meet a boyfriend that way, but I think it was really cool, and it made you realize like you can meet so many people literally by walking down the street. And you don't need like technology, you don't need necessarily the right group or all of that. Yes, it's very helpful. But sometimes we humans make it a lot more complicated than it.
Yeah, I'd say now on just have a mask that says, I want to say hi to you. Because we all have masks walking down the street. But yeah, I think we do complicate it. And Emily, you look unmuted as well. Do you want to share?
Well, not really, but I just think for me, just everything that everybody said, it just kind of like in this bubble and just building off of that. And I just think in order to, you got to show yourself friendly first. So you got to be approachable. Sometimes I don't think we even realize that we're not approachable. Sometimes it's body language. And so I think that plays a part in it, and being willing to just really, I think, listen. And sometimes it's not always about saying something, but being able to listen and maybe chime in when you need to. And I think that that's a tool that I took from being a social worker. It's called reflective listening. That if I'm actively listening to you, that I may ask that question back when I hear you stand, just for clarity. And I think that's building relationships as well, and really just taking it to the next level.
I think something you said is really important about being approachable. Before you send any sort of outreach, why not send it to a friend and ask them, hey, if you got this message, would you respond to it? And I say this with with a huge disclaimer. Don't overthink the message that you send to someone. It should be short, it should be simple, it should be sweet, it should be based on curiosity. But if you are really worried and you're in your own head and holding yourself back from networking, send the message to a friend and say, would you respond to this? Great. Okay. Now you're good to go. You have no excuses anymore. Start sending them out. And to Julia's point before, you may have to send 200 messages. And that may be because people aren't active on LinkedIn. Maybe they don't have time to respond to messages right now. Maybe this is a bad time in their life because of COVID. You have no idea, but keep sending those messages out to people. And eventually you're going to get some people that are really interested and want to connect with you.
I think going back, you do have to show yourself friendly, and you do have to be more of a giver instead of a taker. And I think just when people see that you're willing to go the extra mile and that you're doing all that you can, people are more willing to help you when they see that you're doing it and that you're not afraid. And I think as humans, we're creatures of habit too. So we get in our comfort zone. And so we don't really want to venture outside of that comfort zone. But when you're trying to build a brand and build a business, you have to come out of that comfort zone. So you can't be afraid to meet new people, to listen to other people's ideas. I think you have to be flexible in all of those areas in order to grow and to build a brand.
That was pretty powerful advice and kind of leads into my last question of the night. Do you have any final words? And where can people find you? So if Emily, if you would like to add on.
I'm just humbled to have been a part of this panel. I walk away with a lot of knowledge myself tonight from listening to the other panelists. But you can find me at, my email is emily@emilysfoods.com. My website is Paradise Snacks, that's SNAX.com. I'm also on Twitter at under Emily's Foods, LinkedIn, Emily's Foods. I'm also on LinkedIn under Emily D. Edwards, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook, all under Emily's Foods. So please go check me out. And my product is Paradise Icing. And then we also have Paradise Snack Packs.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. By the way, thank you to everyone for being here. And Emily, I love your snack packs. So everyone should try them. Who else would like to offer some words of advice? And please share where our audience members can find you.
Yeah, I think part of the fun of being an entrepreneur is actually making things. So definitely start making things no matter how big or small. It'll make a difference in your life and others. And yeah, it doesn't have to be massive. It can be a newsletter or an Instagram or whatever you want it to be. And then if you want to contact me, I know 2 people already connected with me on LinkedIn, and they sent messages, so thank you. So that or Julia@makergirl.us is my email. And then our website is makergirl.us. So if you know of any girls 7 to 10 who maybe just needs an hour away from their parents or who wants to learn how to 3D print, go sign them up for sessions. They're pretty awesome.
I can go. Yeah, go with your gut. If you have an idea for something, test it out, see if there's a real problem you're solving or a product market fit, and just test it out. Don't spend a lot of money on it, but do some customer development research to find out if there really is something there. If there is, then surround yourself with people that can support you, people that may have different skill sets than you that can help elevate what you're doing, whether it's a potential co-founder or advisors or mentors, but find people that can help you do what you're doing. And it's hard to do it alone, but try to find people that you can surround yourself with to provide additional expertise and people that you can learn from that have done it already. So you can find me at jason@propellant.vc, propellant.vc. I put it in the chat, but I'll do it again. Also, you can find me on LinkedIn. If you do connect with me on LinkedIn, please qualify and let me know where you met me or you heard me tonight so I know who you are, and that way I'll be able to connect with you. But and I'll most likely want to have a conversation with you as well, just to get to know each other. So thank you for attending as well.
All right, and I'll close this out with, I can't say anything better than what my colleagues here have already shared. So my message to you all will be, get started. I think after a conversation like this, again, I'm the same way. Like, I'm over here taking notes from everybody. This was really inspirational. And, if it's on your mind, if it's on your heart, your soul, to do something to test these thoughts out and just to see what impact you could have on the world, on your industry, my only message would be just get started, try it out, test it out, see what happens. The worst that happens is you end up in the same spot you are in today. And the best thing that can happen is that it changes your life. It changes, your customer, your client's life. So that's my message. I shared my LinkedIn profile a little earlier. I would say hit me up on LinkedIn at any point, excuse me. And I'll add one more tip for LinkedIn, but especially as you commit to your business, use your LinkedIn page as a business page. Like, get rid of any of the information about your job and, don't make it look like a resume like everybody else is doing. but look at it as an extension of your business. Mine is an example of that. So even if we don't connect, I'd say feel free to check out my page and just kind of see what that can start to look like. Please give me advice if you see any opportunities to make it better. But I completely utilize LinkedIn as a part of my business funnel. And so I would encourage you all to come up with a LinkedIn strategy for business, on top of just connecting. And I think that's the message, especially from Jason, from Julia, have a message when you connect, but have some follow-up messages ready to go. Contribute to other leaders' posts that you're following and that you're tracking, and make LinkedIn an official part of your business funnel. So that'd be my advice as well.
And to add to that, I met everyone here through LinkedIn. And I would even say, after sending a first message, sometimes people are really busy. Send a really nice second message just to follow up and then let it go. But sometimes that second message can lead to some really, really great connections, because people tend to sometimes brush off those first messages. One quote that comes to mind that, as Jarvis was talking, was a million no's don't take away from a yes, and the joy from a yes. So get started and look for those yeses. Don't look for those no's, which I think so often we do. And I'd like to thank all of our speakers and say, please follow them. There are their websites. I'll send it in a follow-up email as well. But they have donated their time and their expertise, and just please, round of silent applause to all of them that are here today. Thank you so much, Jarvis, Jason, Emily, and Julia. This would not be possible without you, to say the obvious. And just so everyone knows too, all of the attendees are entered into a raffle to win a free strategy coaching session from me. So make sure you check your inbox for the follow-up with our links from our speakers, their websites, their LinkedIn profiles, and just some notes from today's event as well. So thank you so much to everyone that was here tonight. Thank you to the speakers. And I hope everyone has an enjoyable weekend, and a successful business or businesses, because we all deserve that. And we got some tips tonight to make that happen. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.